Welcome into a brand new hour of CBS Sports HQ. We are presented by Canva. Love your work. Haley Sutton alongside Jacqueline DiAgostino this week. Jacqueline, I hope Sean Payton remembers his gumbo recipes.
Ooh.
I hope he remembers all of his favorite restaurants are in New Orleans, because we, for the first time, get to see him back in New Orleans coaching.
And you know there's a ton of good gumbo spots there. There's a lot of good options, so hopefully he's revisiting them. But usually when we talk about coaches or players going back to their former teams, there's always like some sort of revenge factor.
That's
a revenge game. I don't know. I feel like this is a little bit different. There's no bad blood, maybe. I mean, he won them their only Super Bowl there in New Orleans. You got to think about that, going back to 2009. Also has the most wins by a head coach in Saints history with 152. Led the Saints to 9 of their past 14 playoff appearances. You get it. Sean Payton, here's what he had to say about going back to NOLA.
On a short week, there just isn't enough time in the day. And look, I'm sure there'll be some emotions at some point, but more importantly, it's about our team. And, you know, because really, we go to stadiums with players that, man, this means something to me. I used to be a Chief or Charger, Raider or Eagle, you know, and to that individual, you know, having spent time there, that matters. And so, but I think because of the week and because of the schedule, I haven't really had a chance to. I mean, I get it, but what's most important is finding a way to win.
All right, let's welcome in the fellas, Douzable and Bryant McFadden. Guys, Sean Payton maybe being a little bit coy there, saying, I'm sure there's going to be some emotions, but I'm just focusing on a way to win. He talked about it, right? If you're a former player or a former coach of a certain team, there are emotions that come with that. Alicia, I'll start with you. As a player, if you know that about your coach, does that kind of give you a little bit of a boost, knowing that you're going in there and you want to get the win for your coach who won a Super Bowl for that team all the way back in 2009?
Yeah, definitely. And like the old saying goes, you never want to lose to your ex, right? Now, again, we were kind of kidding about this before we came on air, Jacqueline. Not really any bad blood between Sean Payton and New Orleans Saints. You talked about it. He has the most wins, 152 in Saints history. Led them to their only Super Bowl victory there as well. But as a player on the team, right, you want to go win this for your coach because you know that's where he was, right? He made a lot of memories there as well. So there's always that little additive when you come into a team that your old coach is playing. You want to do it for the Gipper, as they would say back in the day. So, yeah, there'll be some motivation from Sean Payton. And he can be coy saying that, you know, I'm just trying to prepare. It's a short week, so many things going on. Probably won't have a lot of time to see friends and family. But you know in the back of his head, Jacqueline, there is no way he wants to lose this game.
No question. Sean Payton, he was the ultimate professional during that presser. But for him, this is a very, very emotional opportunity for him going back to New Orleans, because you talked about the success he had with the organization, the amount of victories and winning the Super Bowl. But outside of that, just think about what he meant to the city, because he was the head coach during the time when the city went through Hurricane Katrina. And for such a long time going through that devastating storm, the city had to embrace the team. The city embraced the New Orleans Saints, and he was the driving force for all the excitement they were able to give so many people in a time where they didn't have anything to look forward to. And if you know anything about the city of New Orleans, it's a very, very loyal, genuine, authentic city. And they embraced Sean Payton like he was legit from the area based on what he provided for them, along with the success that came with his coaching tenure there in New Orleans. So, yes, a very, very short week. But for him, this will be an emotional-driven game because he gave so much to the city outside of just being the head coach for the New Orleans Saints. And for his players that's there in the locker room, they know what this means to him. They know exactly what's at stake. It's not just another game. Yes, it's another game based on the schedule. But, Leger, you know how it is. When you invest so much into a particular organization or to the city, it's not like just going back to play against an opposing team on the road. This means a lot more, and you better believe he's going to try to keep his emotions intact, especially during the start of that game. But it's a different situation than most coaches when they go back to visit their old stomping grounds.
Yeah, B-Mac, that's a great point. I literally have goosebumps just thinking back to that time with Hurricane Katrina and everything you're talking about happening outside of the football field. If all of that we just discussed is not enough to get Sean Payton to show some emotions, this other storyline perhaps will. Drew Brees, who's going to get inducted into the Saints Hall of Fame tonight, and he wanted it to be this game with Sean Payton in attendance. Lige, I don't know if there's any other emotions that we can talk about, but this certainly puts a bow on it.
Oh, without a doubt. I think people tend to forget, Jack and B-Mac, that when you look at what Drew Brees went through before becoming a New Orleans Saints, a lot of people thought his career was over, right? He goes to Sean Payton in New Orleans, and his career gets revitalized and becomes one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen, more specifically passing the football with his accuracy and knowing where to go with the ball. So I think this was amazing by Drew Brees to make sure that when he goes into the Hall of Fame, he's already in the Saints Ring of Honor, but when he goes to the Hall of Fame, the guy that kind of resurrected his career will be on the sideline when that happens. This wasn't by chance, Jack. When you talked about it, if you could add any more emotions to this game, you add this. This ties a bow on it because Drew Brees, for his career, Sean Payton meant so much for it, for him to revitalize his career. Because like I said, a lot of people thought when he left the Chargers, it was over for Drew Brees. But Sean Payton revitalized his career. They went on to win a championship and had a lot of success in the playoffs with Drew Brees at the helm. So, B-Mac, we kind of alluded to it earlier, right? Sean Payton could be coy about how he feels about this game, but you don't think that adds a little bit more when it comes to winning this game, especially knowing that your guy is there and he's going into the Hall of Fame due to a lot of what you did in regards to getting him there?
No question, man. This just adds more icing on the cake when you're talking about an emotional-filled game for Sean Payton, knowing that his guy, Drew Brees, wanted him to be a part of his ceremony, and deserving so. Because you talked about the success that Drew Brees had while being there in New Orleans. I mean, the same can be said for Sean Payton, because those two individuals are tied to the hip. They both will go into the Hall of Fame knowing that either guy played a huge part in them getting into the Hall of Fame when it's all said and done. So this is it makes sense, and I'm so happy that Drew made sure that he wanted this game to be the game where he's inducted, because his guy will be on the opposing sideline and he gets an opportunity to embrace this moment as well.
And with the win tonight, Sean Payton also becomes a member of the very exclusive club of head coaches to beat all 32 current NFL franchises. Let's shift focus over to the Broncos. 500 on the season. It's been a little bit of an up and down year for Bo Nix so far, adjusting as a rookie quarterback at the next level. B-Mac, how much would a win and bouncing back in this spot change the outlook for the Broncos this season?
This would be huge because you're playing against a team, let's keep it real, guys, on paper, you should beat because of the injuries, right? They won't have their starting quarterback. They're missing their top two wide receivers. They were already dealing with injuries on the offensive line. So you're coming into this game as the more healthier group, and you should be able to utilize that to warrant a win. So when you talk about being 3-3 with a rookie quarterback, we've seen some highs and lows from Bo Nix, but he's done a pretty good job, Lejay, in my opinion. I'm loving what I'm seeing from the defense as well. They have been the most surprising unit for me defensively, what they've been able to do, kind of putting the team on their back until the offense kind of surfaces and comes to the party. But if they can win this game, Jack, this would be huge, because if you look at what they have moving forward, the next 4 ball games, they have Carolina, then they travel to Baltimore, Kansas City, and they have Atlanta at home. So if you can win this ball game, you're 4-3. The next game against Carolina is another winnable matchup. So you have an opportunity to be 6-4 before you get into that difficult 3-game stretch that consists of Baltimore, Kansas City, and Atlanta. So this is a huge, huge game for the Broncos, because you're playing against a team that's undermanned. They're short-manded. They don't have a full deck of legit players to go to battle with. So they got to take care of their business, because if you take care of your business, like I said, you have Carolina coming up, and then you have a 3-game stretch where it's going to be very, very difficult. So you got to win the games you're supposed to win.
Yeah, B-Mac and Jacqueline, this is a must-win for the Denver Broncos, plain and simple. B-Mac, you alluded to all the injuries for the Saints. I mean, the Broncos are actually dealing with some injuries as well. Look at this. Pat Surtain II, the best corner in all of football. Mike McGlinchey's been out. Also, his backup, right, Alex Palczewski is out for this game as well. And then you see Baron Browning out for this game. I thought it was interesting last week watching that game versus the Chargers, B-Mac. Everybody knows Jim Harbaugh wants to establish the run game. Well, Pat Surtain II got hurt on the very first defensive play for the Denver Broncos. You know what they did, B-Mac? 7 of the next 8 plays were pass plays, right? That lets you know how important Patrick Surtain is. Justin Herbert hadn't thrown over 30 passes in the game. B-Mac, he threw 34 passes last week. Again, that lets you know how big Pat Surtain II is. Levi Wallace came in, struggled a little bit in that game. So it'll be interesting to see what the Saints do on offense. Now, you talked about it. They are undermanned. Their top 2 receivers out. Cesar Ruiz, their guard, is out this game. Derek Carr is out this game. So it'll be interesting to see how Spencer Rattler can maybe try to exploit this defense, because without Patrick Surtain II and him covering the top receiver, which could it be Bud Means? We don't know. Will it be Cedric Wilson? We don't know, because their top 2 guys are out. It's a little different for this Denver defense, and we saw the Chargers kind of exploit that. Now, again, that was Justin Herbert. Spencer Rattler is a rookie, but that'll be interesting to watch, right, to see how this Denver defense comes out and play. But looking at their offense, if they can't get on track this game, I don't know if the Denver offense will ever get on track, right? When you look at what the Saints did last week, B-Mac, they gave up over 600 yards of total offense. Now, again, that Bucs offense is explosive, but if you're Denver, you got to be licking your chops right now, because that Saints defense did not show up at all last week. So Bo Nix really struggled in the first 3 quarters last week. I believe he was 4-14 through the first 3 quarters. Fourth quarter started getting his legs involved, went 15-19 and finished really strong. This is a big game for Bo Nix.
BJ, I want to double down on that point and talking about all of the injuries that we're seeing specifically on offense for the Saints. You mentioned the top wideouts are gone. Derek Carr hurt as well, so it's Spencer Rattler time. How can Spencer Rattler lead this offense to a win, exploit that Broncos defense with all of these injuries to keep in mind as well?
Yeah, when you look at what the Chargers did last week, a lot of heavy play action pass. They got to get Alvin Kamara going in the run game. I believe he only had 13 carries last week. That's not going to win you football games when you have a rookie quarterback. Spencer Rattler proved that he could throw the ball down the field, right? He had some connection with Bud Means. What I really like that they did in that second quarter is they got the tight ends involved. Jawan Jennings, Fabian Monroe got involved for the Saints. They got to continue to get them involved. But one matchup I want to see tonight is Bud Means and Spencer Rattler, to see if they're on the same page. B-Mac, you know this. When you come in as rookies, a lot of times you're taking reps with the second and third team. So it was obvious last week that Spencer Rattler really trusts Bud Means, because he led the team in targets as a rookie with 8 targets last week. Had 4 catches, I believe 50-something yards, and a touchdown reception as well. So I think Bud Means is going to get an uptick in targets because, one, Spencer Rattler trusts him, but they got to get Alvin Kamara going in the run game to slow down this high-pressure unit with Vance Joseph, the defensive corner that likes to bring pressure from the Denver Broncos.
All right, it is time for Love Your Work, presented by Canva. We're talking X Factors, gentlemen. B-Mac, we'll start with you. Who is your X Factor for Thursday Night Football in this matchup?
My X Factor for tonight's game is Alvin Kamara. We need to love his work tonight. He has to show up. He has to have a huge impact. You talk about having a rookie quarterback and Spencer Rattler making his second start. You talk about how shorthanded they will be on the offensive side. If they look to have any kind of sparks coming from the offensive side, it has to start with number 41. Get this, Alvin Kamara against Kansas City only had 26 yards rushing, right? In total yards from scrimmage, he had 66. That's not the mark. Against Tampa a week ago, only 40 yards rushing. Total offense, 64 yards. That's not Alvin Kamara like. He has to have at least the bare minimum 100 yards from scrimmage, because he's a do-it-all back, and he would need to put forth his best effort for their offense to sustain, generate positive yards in this ball game against a high-powered, high-level defense. So he is my X factor tonight's game, because if number 41 does not show up, you might not see a lot from Spencer Rattler because that puts more pressure, that would put more pressure on him. So Alvin Kamara is my X factor.
Well, B-Mac, I'm going to go with the guy that's going to be trying to slow him down. That's defensive lineman Zach Allen, who is number 2 in the NFL currently in quarterback hits with 13. He's tied for 4th with quarterback hurries at 21. You alluded to some of the injuries, the interior of the offensive line the Saints has, right? Zach Allen will take full advantage of it. When you look at the Saints team, they gave up 5 sacks last week, B-Mac, and 10 quarterback hits. Zach Allen has to be licking his chops. He's going to be really big in the run game, stopping Alvin Kamara as well as getting after Spencer Rattler through the middle. And then for the Saints, Bud Means, I talked about him earlier, right? He has a rapport already with Spencer Rattler. They came in the same draft class. He is going to be big getting the ball from Spencer Rattler. The 2 top receivers are out, Chris Olave and then Rashid Shaheed. Look for Bud Means to have a big game for the Saints today.
All right, gentlemen, we only have about 30 seconds left. You're both rolling with the Broncos. B-Mac, kick us off. Tell us why you're going with Denver.
Yeah, I'm taking Denver. I mean, they're the healthier team. You look at their defense, they're number 2 in the National Football League in sacks. They do a great job in harassing, putting pressure on opposing quarterbacks. I think that might be too much for Spencer Rattler, knowing the experience or the lack thereof he has at his disposal. So I'm taking the healthier team with the best defense. Give me the Broncos laying at 2.5.
All right, B-Mac, Lige, we certainly appreciate it. Broncos, as B-Mac mentioned, laying 2.5. Total really low, 36 and a hook. Make sure you stay locked in to CBS Sports HQ. We got you covered all season long when it comes to the NFL. News, highlights, scores, and so much more. It is all right here on HQ.